Governor, we really appreciate coming to Leesburg. And we appreciate you working so closely with Senator Herring, our favorite senator. Thank you very much. What we really appreciate is you're trying to solve this problem. We've been working hard on it so far, and the reason we're very supportive of a permanent revenue stream for transportation in the state, and my colleagues from the town council are unanimous on this, is that we process 69,000 vehicle trips a day on our roads coming from West Virginia, Winchester, Maryland, etc. And out of our $45 million general fund budget each year, we in recent years have had to spend $14 million in local Leesburg taxpayer funds to try to fill in to meet our transportation needs. So whether everyone agrees with any particular part of your plan, you've done a great job trying to get something through the legislature, and I know Senator Herring has been a strong supporter of solving this, so thank you very much.
Absolutely, Mayor. And Loudon, you mentioned what Leesburg spends. I mean, Loudon, bonding, etc., has spent an awful lot of local resources, and that's fine too. I mean, it could be a partnership. My worry is that the state's not living up to the state side of the partnership. And we need to do that so that it's just not falling on the backs of property owners. And what I'll do is I'm going to be in the front, and then I'm just going to kind of work back to the back room.
I'll be quick. We want to hear from the citizens. But first of all, thank you for coming to Loudon County. Thank you for coming to Loudon County. And what I want to do is present to you, this is a copy of the resolution that was adopted by the supervisors this past business meeting, and basically we support a statewide plan for highway construction and maintenance. We support funding for mass transit and things for pedestrian walkways and trails to help folks be able to get around without having to get in their car. And we're also very supportive of regional tax and revenue sources. But many people probably don't quite understand. Route 28 is a marvelous example of state, local, and private initiative. We are 1 year away in Loudon County from having no lights on Route 28. We are about 2 years away from no lights from Route 7 and 28 all the way to Route 50, but it wasn't done because somebody was very generous and gave us that money. There is a tax overlay district called the Route 28 Tax District that people are paying 20 cents per hundred on real estate to make that happen. Algonquian and Route 7 interchange was done because of the CDA that was created around the Dulles Town Center, and that is an added, I believe, 11 cents per hundred in value to have built that interchange as well as other infrastructure costs. We are in both a funding crisis and a physical crisis with transportation. All you have to do is be here in the morning and see the people trying to get to work that are stuck on Route 7, on the toll road, and Route 50, and the same thing when they're going home. I certainly appreciate your leadership on this, and I only hope that both the Democrats and the Republicans in the House and the Senate will understand that no is not an option any longer. We have to solve this for the good of the citizen, for the health and vitality of the Commonwealth. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you for coming up here. I'd like to talk briefly about another transportation structure that really needs improvement in Virginia, and that's the Virginia Department of Transportation. There have been several projects up here in Loudon County that were using innovative modern designs, and it took relatively 10 years for one of them to start being built, and another, it took about 6 years. They were using innovative designs, low cost, such as roundabouts. It took a long time because VDOT's not used to building them, and it's rather hidebound and reluctant to embrace these new designs. These designs would improve safety dramatically. They're
They cost less to build, they cost less to maintain, and I have seen there's a real reluctance, and we need to keep pushing VDOT to embrace these designs, which will really save us money too, if we reduce the time it takes to build them, etc.
Everybody here, can everybody hear? Is that mic working on this one? The question, just to repeat quickly, was, hey, there's still work to do in VDOT, and the questioner said that there have been projects up here that were innovative design that was difficult for VDOT to embrace because, hey, we don't do it that way. So can we be innovative and creative on the design of projects? And I hired the new commissioner of VDOT, Dave Eckern, a little bit less than 2 years ago. One of the reasons I did, he'd been the chief engineer of the Minnesota system, which is another one of the largest ones in the nation. And then he had run transportation in Idaho, which was road, rail, and airports, I believe. But he was a specialist in something that they call context-sensitive design, which is don't just do it out of the engineering textbook and no other way, but really try to make the design work with the community. And Dave has a good sense of that. Now, not everybody just immediately changes their mind overnight, and Dave comes in and it's all different, but I think he's doing a pretty good job with the district engineers at the level, putting people in place who are open to it doesn't have to be the one-size-fits-all solution, it can be a different solution. But I credit what you're saying. I think more creativity in design, that is always something that we should focus on, and I think there's more we can do. Right here.
Yes, sir.
So again, Mike will come to you. And then...
Yes, Governor. Thank you for coming. It's a pleasure to hear your plan. My question's a little off topic, but very relevant.
Okay.
Last weekend there was a conference out in Chantilly, Virginia, known as the Bilderberg Group. And I wanted to get your take on that because there's been many photographs of Chairman Federal Verdacki, Madeleine Albright, Condoleezza Rice, Secretary of State Gates. My question is, this criminal enterprise was held in a state that has a motto that's death and tyrants. I mean, I would like to get your take on that. And if you can respond to that, I mean, it's very concerning.
Yeah, I really can't because I don't know about the meeting and what it was about, and so I can't really respond in the time.
Thank you, sir.
A lot of people had ties. I should have been more specific.
First off, I'd like to say I'm a new Virginia resident. I've been here for about a year. I moved here from West Virginia, a neighbor. If anybody who's ever been to West Virginia knows West Virginia is economically very poor. There's not a lot of jobs in West Virginia, and the infrastructure is failing. This is because of overtaxation. West Virginia has some of the highest B&O taxes. We have high sales tax and high food tax, and we're taxed up to our ears over there. One of the reasons I decided to leave West Virginia to come to Virginia was because of lower taxes, was because of a better job. And I wouldn't want to see the same fate fall Virginia, even though your tax plan isn't going to drive it up to the standard of West Virginia. However, I'd also like to bring up the issue that the dollar is currently being devalued more and more so every day. We're facing large amounts of inflation. The stock market's been crashing recently, and the housing market is doing horrible. And to add a tax onto the housing market, onto the sales of houses, would make that market be even worse in the state of Virginia. One of the reasons why we have a lot of business in Virginia is, according to your map, everybody saw it, the neighboring states have more taxes, so people would naturally want to come to Virginia to do business. I mean, you got to really consider that the more you raise taxes, the less likely people are going to come to your state from other states just to do business. We have that now in Virginia, thank goodness. People like myself and other smart people are coming here because of the way the taxes are set up, because they're good, because they're fair, and I don't want to see people get overtaxed. I'd like to suggest that maybe we can find a better way, instead of increasing taxes, maybe cut spending on a couple of programs, a couple of social programs. Back in 2002, or not 2002, I'm sorry, 2005, whenever you were running against Mr. Kilgore, you stated that you were not going to raise taxes. However,
in the general fund.
However, since you've been in office, state taxes have increased by 1.5%, and
I don't think that's right. But let me answer the question. I did say when I ran for governor that I would not see increases in taxes in the general fund, but I also said that I would bring the legislature back immediately in my first year to find transportation solutions, including transportation revenues. So I didn't take a no tax pledge with respect to transportation because there's a need. Citizens are saying there's a need. Citizens in Northern, I mean, raise your hand if you don't think there's a transportation problem in Northern Virginia. Okay? So everyone in this room has just told me there is a problem in Northern Virginia. Okay? Exactly the response that I get in Radford and Stanton and other parts of the state. So what I like to think, so I'm going to answer your question. So there is an issue of how do you do it? How do you do it? We're not going to be West Virginia. All these taxes, we will still be significantly below national averages. But there's no free lunch in this world. I mean, that's what this is about. Forbes magazine says we're the most business-friendly state in America. Governing magazine says we're the top-performing state government in America. Education Week says we're the best state in America for a child to be born to have a successful life. We want to hold on to that. We want to hold on to that. We're not going to be able to hold on to it if we let our infrastructure degrade. I want taxes to be low. That's why I got rid of the estate tax, and that's why I work with these legislators to get rid of the income tax on low-income working Virginians. But the transportation system has a lot to do with how big your economy is. And if we let that degrade, then the kinds of things that bring people here, good economic opportunities and jobs, will run into problems. How about let's make cuts? I just cut the state budget by $300 million in October. And then in February, we found another $1.4 billion worth of cuts. And so now we're in a place where, even though we're 5th in the nation in income, we're 36th in the nation in spending. So look, we can wake up tomorrow and find another cut or two. We will be looking, because we always ought to be looking for efficiencies, and we can. But we're not going to cut our way into a better infrastructure. We're just not going to do it with income at number 5 and spending and taxes at number 36 and 39. So I understand your point of view. I can assure you that taxes in Virginia will still be very much on the low scale when we're done with this. But we'll have low taxes and a working infrastructure rather than low taxes and a degrading infrastructure. Right, and then I'll come to you, Kaine. Please.
Governor, I want to thank you for coming to Loudoun County. My name is Paul Weiss. I'm the chairman of the board of the Loudoun County Chamber of Commerce, representing over 1,200 businesses, and had the opportunity to meet you last week at that event. Something you said at that event, towards the end of it, was so true, and that is we have so much going for us here in the state of Virginia. We have so much going for us in the Commonwealth. Now's not the time to shrink back. Chamber of Commerce, I have a couple of things I just want to make a point. Chamber of Commerce recognizes that the traffic isn't a problem, it's a critical problem. We have members of the Chamber businesses that are having a hard time keeping employees, having a hard time getting employees, having a hard time getting product out to their customers and dealing with that. It is a critical problem, and we don't see it getting any better just keeping it status quo. We've been a long-time supporter, staunch supporter of new, sustainable, significant regional and statewide funds to address Virginia's transportation funding crisis. Loudoun County Chamber is part of and is a leader in the Northern Virginia Business Coalition, which I know you're very familiar with, and is working to secure desperately a solution to the nation's second worst traffic congestion problem. We stand squarely behind the coalition's call for new, sustainable, dedicated revenue streams to provide $400 million per year, specifically to address the acute road and transit needs. In the face of the Supreme Court decision to invalidate most of the last year's transportation funding bill, Loudoun County Chamber is calling upon Loudoun's General Assembly delegation and entire legislature to support a substantial new transportation funding measure when they return to Richmond on June 23rd. Now, in Loudoun County Chamber, we don't put R's and D's behind names or I's. But I guarantee you there are a number of R's and D's and I's. But we recognize that business is business, and if we don't do anything, we're definitely going to start shrinking on the line.
Thanks, Paul. You'll be next. I've got one right here.
Oh, yes, thanks for coming, Governor. It's great to see you here. And this budget session for the Board of Supervisors here in Loudoun, it became very apparent that there are two issues that we have to struggle with financially: schools and transportation. And recently, at the State of the County speech that our chairman gave, there was a delegation from the state leaders, and with the exception of Senator Herring, the rest of them were very pessimistic and felt that this meeting that you're going to have down in Richmond is not going to achieve anything. So what I want to know is when you get all those legislators in their different halls, would you consider, once their doors are shut, would you take the keys and throw it away?
I'm assuming that is kind of rhetorical. That's not a real suggestion. Let me say this. Am I pessimistic about finding a solution? I mean, face it. The last big one that the legislature did in this area is 1986. Then we've tried it in 2000, 02, 04, 06, 07, and now it's 08. So there would be reason to be pessimistic, including some of the legislators are saying, oh, we can't agree, we can't agree. We just did two things this session that were pretty remarkable, I thought. It was a year where revenues were really slow, but we did a dramatic revision of the state's mental health laws and community mental health services, including putting a lot of new money in that we didn't have. We had to cut a bunch of other things to put money into that, but we needed to do it. And in the aftermath of Virginia Tech, we said, this is a problem. We're ashamed that the state of mental health services was what it was, and we can improve it. And woe to us if we don't. And Democrats and Republicans in House and Senate and governor and legislature, we did. And then, it was also a tough budget year, but we just did the biggest package for capital construction, bond construction, in our colleges and community colleges ever in the history of Virginia, $1.6 billion, to improve access to higher ed for young and for everybody who uses higher ed. And again, I rolled out a plan in December. A bunch of people were against it, said we couldn't do it, but everybody put their thumbprint on it and shaped it, and it ended up being really good. It was better at the end than it was when I proposed it. We did it. So while this has been tough, and while there are some naysayers who say, oh, well, we can't do this, there's no reason we can't do this. You elected us to solve problems. We know what the problems are. We know what the solutions are. The only thing is backbone. That's the only thing. Willingness to solve it. Now, again, I don't underestimate it. It's hard to cast tough votes, et cetera, but why do this if you're not trying to solve a problem? So I'm looking at the things that the legislature just did in a bipartisan way, saying if they can tackle mental health reform and college capital construction, there isn't any reason we can't do this one. So, may happen, may not, but I believe that, the legislature, the overwhelming majority, want to find an answer to this problem. And if that is true, we will find an answer right here in the dark city in the red of the time.
Governor Kaine, thank you for taking my question. My name is Arthur Purvis. I'm president of the Fairfax County Taxpayers Alliance, and I'd like to give you that alternate plan that you have been hungering for. I have here the 2007 JLARC annual report on state spending. It says over the last 10 years, the state budget increased by $17 billion. It doubled. It increased twice as fast as population and inflation. Out of that $17 billion increase, according to this report, $1 billion of the $17 billion went to transportation. Couldn't we have found more? Now, about $8 billion of it went to education and health care. Elsewhere, I have 2 more points.
Sure. Yeah, please.
Elsewhere in this report, it points out that inflation-adjusted college budgets have been increasing 3 times faster than enrollment. Inflation-adjusted spending on public schools has been increasing 4 times faster than enrollment, and inflation-adjusted spending on Medicaid has been increasing 5 times faster than population. What are we getting for our money?
Sure.
I have here a report by the ACT college admissions test, which says that 23% of Virginia high school students are prepared for college. That's not a big return when you're increasing your school spending 4 times faster than enrollment.
Okay, we got the investment.
One more point.
Okay.
And I actually emailed the Department of Medical Assistance Services, which administers Medicaid, and I asked them, why is Medicaid spending going up 5 times faster than enrollment after adjusting for the CPI? They said, we do not know. We just administer the program. I asked the JLARC the same question. They said, we don't keep any information on Medicaid. We get our information from
I'd be glad to answer your question.
And my comment is that your $1 billion tax increase is to subsidize the mismanagement or lack of management of taxpayer funds.
All right, let me answer all this. Don't take it from me, okay? Governing Magazine just finished looking at all 50 states, and they ranked Virginia the top performing state government in the United States. And they compared both our taxes and our spending against every other state, 5th in revenue, 36th in spending, 39th in taxes. I never thought I'd be in politics, so I was in the private sector, running a law firm. 130 employees. Everything I know about budgets and finances, I know from the private sector. And here's what we used to do. If I wanted to know in the private sector if I was spending too much for rent, I would find out what every other law firm was spending on rent. And if they were spending 5% and I was spending 10%, I was spending too much for rent. If they were spending 5% and I was spending 3%, then I was generally in pretty good shape. I'm a big believer in benchmarking. You benchmark yourself against others. And we benchmark ourselves against others all the time. So, per pupil expenditures, we're low compared to other states. Per person expenditures on Medicaid, reimbursement rates for Medicaid, eligibility rates for Medicaid, we're quite low compared to other states. Usually at about the 40s. Now, could you say, hey, we could maybe be a little bit better? Of course we can. Of course we can. But when you're 5th in income, but you're around 39th, 40th in taxes, you're not going to cut your way to prosperity at that point. And so the notion of, well, let's just cut some more out of education or Medicaid. I know why Medicaid's gone. I don't know why they wouldn't answer your question, because they answer mine. I like the Medicaid budget. Why has Medicaid gone up? It's gone up for 2 reasons. It's gone up partly because of enrollment increases, but you're right. It's not been enrollment increases that have really been driving it. It's healthcare costs. Now, we don't control healthcare costs. You know, we buy health insurance for employees, or we do Medicaid for others, and the prices tend to get set by, you know, insurers and others. We don't set them. We actually manage our healthcare cost increases a lot better than most states do, but we don't set them. And so when, you know, your and my parents and grandparents are using Medicaid or Medicare as seniors to pay for their nursing home cost or their medical cost, we're not necessarily setting all those costs, but our citizens are demanding that there be some level of service that is humane and dignified in the Medicaid program. You can look at pretty much any expenditure level in Virginia, and what you will find is that benchmarked against other states, we're low. That's why we're 5th in income and near 36th, 39th. And so I don't disagree with you, Arthur, that we could find tomorrow savings here, savings there. In fact, I'm pushing my departments to do that all the time. But as a guy who comes at this with private sector experience, you're not going to be near the bottom of the pack in spending and taxes and then say, but the way to come up with transportation revenue is to cut even more. You don't cut your way to prosperity. A nation that has a degrading infrastructure doesn't have a good economy. How many of you in this room saw an interstate highway bridge in the United States collapse into the Mississippi River and have a feeling like I have, like this has got to be another country. This isn't the United States. We don't let our infrastructure degrade so much so that an interstate would collapse into the Mississippi River. That's a third world thing. But that's what we're doing by trying to kind of, suggest we can have this all on the cheap. We can't. So, that's my answer. Right here.
You're done.
I just wanted to comment that I've seen where some of that spending is going, and I'm sure all of you have been on 495 and you see all the more people getting pulled over by the police officers, and it just seems to be going up every week. More and more crackdown on speeders and things like that. More violations of people's Fourth Amendment rights with searches and things like that. And I was at Bilderberg Conference, and I know there were at least 50 police officers there around the clock guarding international criminals. And we don't need to spend money on that.
Let me just say, if some would say we should have less speeding enforcement. I think most on the safety side would probably say if we had better, people would drive safer. That's yeah, and I think Mike's coming.
My name is Laura Grammers. I came up from Centerville, and if Google told me to leave 30 minutes, I left 90 because of the traffic, but I made it here. And we run sometimes in similar circles with my favorite friend, Chuck Caputo over there, and Kathy Smith in the school board. But I'm here maybe to tick off both sides because I'm more interested in tax fairness as an issue than tax adequacy. It's often set up as an either-or. I'm a volunteer member of the Virginia Organizing Project's Tax Committee. We have a statewide campaign on tax reform, and really disappointed to see more recommendations for increases in the sales tax because that hits lowest income people the hardest. For example, I have some numbers here. Folks earning about $30,000 a year would pay an extra $110 in income tax. And economically, it's not very sound. If you want to do sound tax principles, you look at an ability to pay, it leads to economic growth, and the circle keeps going. So I really hope to encourage you to please look at tax fairness when we're looking to get to tax adequacy, or revenue adequacy, I should say, and to think about those who can afford to pay the least. And to also keep in mind that folks with higher incomes will probably continue to spend, but the folks at the lower income, they're spending on their basic needs. My question is on your option to eliminate the local income tax, because the income tax can be a method to make tax codes more progressive, meaning more fair to the poor. But I wouldn't want to see the local income taxes raised as a standalone, possibly a local income tax swap for a property tax, because income tax is based on ability to pay, where property taxes are not. So just wondering why that's in there as an option.
Yeah, let me take the two questions. And the first issue, kind of broadly, maybe just say, is the package that I put up on the board, is it regressive? Does it hit lower income higher than it should? I was the mayor of Richmond. We have a very high poverty population, and I'm really sensitive to these issues of tax fairness. And I actually thought about a lot of different proposals and really believe that this package in total is a very fair package for low-income people. You can pick one piece out and say that's not good, but let me just say in total. The 1% increase in the auto titling tax. That's a big part of my package. Poor people tend to keep vehicles longer and not buy new vehicles as often. And so that is not a regressive fee. That's actually a progressive part of the proposal. Grantor's tax. Tax on the sale of property. That is also a tax that is paid more by middle or upper income people, not low. The $10 registration fee per vehicle, that is a regressive tax, because whether you got a VW or whether you got a Lexus, I'm asking you to pay $10, but it is $10. That is not usually regressive. Sales tax, my experience in local office pretty much convinced me that after we took food and medicine out of the sales tax, it's not near as regressive as it was. And compared with the other way to raise revenue in the transportation area, the gas tax, it's actually much easier for poor people. Because poor people who live in parts of Virginia that have no public transportation, and that's much of Virginia, gas is a necessity every bit as much as food and medicine is. They got to have gas to get to work, get the kids to school, get to the hospital. And so, in talking with folks, even low-income folks in other parts of the state, they would much rather pay a sales tax that would be spread out across a lot of purchases rather than pay a gas tax at a time when gas prices were so high. So, if you look at the whole package, I think it's actually not a regressive package, but it really tries to lift the burden off low-income people to the extent that we can. We're trying to fight this problem. Local option income tax, part of my proposal was there's currently authority in Virginia law for jurisdictions in Northern Virginia and Hampton Roads to impose a local option income tax. I have proposed to repeal that because the mayors and chairman of the board of supervisors have all told me, Governor, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do local option income taxes because, and I already knew the answer because of having been mayor, if we do that in our jurisdiction and the next door neighbor doesn't, we're just going to make ourselves uncompetitive and push people around. And so rather than compete within, ourselves, let's have some degree of uniformity. And so that's why the local option income tax authority has been in place since the late 1980s. Not a single jurisdiction has ever even tried to use it. So, green shirt, James, I'm going to give you one. I gave you one in Prince William. I'll give you another.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. One thing about Loudon and a lot of other areas, it's not just rich people who own houses. There are a lot of middle class, lower middle class folks who moved out to Loudon a couple years back to get a house. A lot of them are being forced to sell their houses now, and now you're proposing hitting them with the grantor's tax, adding insult to injury. She mentioned quite rightly that the sales tax disproportionately falls on poorer folks. So it just seems like your plan is kicking people when they're down. Why are you hitting the poor so hard with these taxes?
Well, I'm glad that I think I just answered that. The package really doesn't. Once you take sales tax off food and medicine, it is not that regressive a tax. And the grantor's tax, I recognize that a lot of people own property, but when you sell property, there are sales proceeds. And generally, by having it on sales, that makes it less regressive than if you had it on everything else like rental, etc. So, but look, what I've said ain't perfect. If you want to improve it. But don't just say no nothing. Because every one of you said there's a transportation problem. Yeah, white shirt.
Thank you. On the grantor's tax,